Well, here we are again with Jeb Bergh. And it's so wonderful to be back here after almost 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, he said. Sunday would have been his last day, but he has to leave to go back to New York tomorrow. So we're going to do what we have to do today with Jeb. Again, Jeb, I welcome you.
Well, I lost somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds, for starters.
Oh, that's going to excite everybody to begin with.
Well, I figured that's why I started with it.
Yes.
Well, I've had at least 3 minor miracles. The first one is the ankle on my left leg. I'd broken that very badly about 19 years ago. And ever since then, I've been plagued with really sudden, extreme pain in it. So I could be walking along and all of a sudden the ankle would go out. They have an exercise here that they do on something they call a rebounder, which is a little circular trampoline. And the point of doing that 20 minutes a day is that gives you lymphatic massage. At any rate, I had sort of avoided this. Then one day I went in there, nothing else to do, and I saw the machine and I asked one of the young ladies there, what do I do with this? She said, you bounce on it for 20 minutes. So I bounced on it for 10 minutes, got bored, and the next morning I woke up, and as my feet hit the floor, I start walking and I notice something's missing. The pain was missing. I mean, totally gone. I had been living with a number of pains in toes and on both feet, but most specifically, huge pain in my left ankle. That's all gone right now. That's one minor miracle. Minor miracle number 2 is for a few years now, my eyes have been getting progressively more and more bloodshot. It looked like I had a low-grade case of conjunctivitis. Now my eyes are almost completely clear. The third one it regards exercise. I have always enjoyed doing a bit of exercise. Now, over the last few years, I haven't really been able to do very many sit-ups. I'm getting increasing paunch as a result of that. But I couldn't do very many sit-ups because after doing about 30 or 35, I'd start to get really extreme pain in my lower back. No pain in my back. A little bit of stomach discomfort. The next 2 times I went, I was doing 3 sets of 150 with no back pain then or later. So 3 minor miracles. And the other one is I've lost somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds right now.
Oh, that's very...
Actually, I can keep going. In speaking with Anna Maria, we were doing the blood comparisons, and the most obvious difference is the cholesterol has gone from, I believe it was 214 down to 163, thereabouts.
Well, this is all very impressive, and certainly, as you call them, miracles, minor miracles. When you first came here, I don't know that we got that on camera, but you said something about, I guess because of your line of work and seeing so many hoaxes and people pretending to be that which they weren't in reality. So you were rather cynical, were you not?
Certainly cynical, a little skeptical. I am less cynical. I am less skeptical now. The people they have here are some of the best communicators I've ever seen, and I've spent the last 25, 28 years watching people do their best to communicate, and they've got a very good crew here. They field the questions very well, and nobody really asks a stupid question, and it works.
Well, that's, I think, saying a lot for the Institute. What would you say to someone who was in the same situation as you with the cynicism or the skepticism, if they would have any ailment or anything? I mean, just from what you've described to us, what would you say to someone who might be thinking of coming or maybe says, oh, forget that, I wouldn't go? Would you have any advice for anyone like that?
I guess the advice that I would have for anybody contemplating something like this is, make sure you've tried the other things first. Do it, see how it works, and then try this. But the key to doing anything and getting good results is to, look at that guy. I'm sorry. He was just sneaking up on us.
We have a visitor.
Look at the complexion on that duck.
Did your complexion look like that when you got here, or was it the duck juice? What is that?
See, this duck has been swimming in unfiltered water.
Well, with the minor miracles that you've had, and we talked about the skepticism and the cynicism that you had when you came here at Hippocrates, what do you think would be your advice to someone who might be considering a visit to Hippocrates, or maybe not considering? Maybe they're thinking, well, yeah, I hear some good things, but it's not for me. What would be your advice to someone contemplating or not?
Well, if somebody says that it's not for them, I would say, well, what is for you? You know, what have you tried? What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And it's probably going to be that they're looking for a bit of a miracle. Miracles don't just happen. Whether you're coming to Hippocrates or whether you're learning to fly an airplane, you have to go by the steps. You have to do it step by step. Do what the instructor says. Do what the people say. You know, as another pretty successful institution says, work the program. The program works.
So that's what you would ask the individual who might be thinking of coming or not coming. And of course, I guess with you having had the results that you've had, I mean, you would readily tell someone what had happened to you, give them your experiences if they had any idea of coming.
I haven't experienced the results that I was hoping for,
yes,
that I would hope for. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other three things I was telling you about, mm-hmm, were surprises. Those mm-hmm weren't the reason that I came here. I came here because of you know, almost 20 years of untreated Lyme disease. I came here because of you know, heart condition, and that sort of situation is going to take a long time to fix. And as Brian says, I believe I'm quoting him correctly, he said that that won't disappear. That won't be cured. But what we can do is pretty much beat it into submission. Mm-hmm. Fine, I'll take that any day.
Sure.
And I'm considerably more hopeful about realizing that now than I was 2 weeks ago.
Surprises that you had, let's call them those, as you said, minor miracles. Mm-hmm. That's a start. Now, my curiosity is this. The fact that you said that these things are not going to go away, the problems that you initially came here for, not going to go away, but you can beat them down into submission. And doing so, what advice were you given in order to do that? How are you going to do that?
Well, diligence. It's not going to be coming overnight. There are a lot of things I have to do. I mean, it's eating properly, it's getting exercise. It's all the common sense stuff for a good life. Mm-hmm. You know, both you know, psychologically, emotionally, physically, and with the food.
And is it in your plan to continue with what you've learned here? Is it in your plan to continue this way of eating, for example?
Yeah. I mean, raw vegetables and everything are not my favorite food for every meal and every snack. Mm-hmm. But, you know, what's the alternative?
Yeah, so it's kind of getting into it and just working with it. You might fall sometime, but it's probably going to be to your advantage to beat in submission the problems that you have. It will be to your advantage to really stick with the program as much as you possibly can. And maybe, who knows, eventually I think that if you stick with it long enough, it will become a part of you if you can do that. Do you think you might be able to do that?
I think that the food that I'm coming from is, you know, I think my eating habits and the eating habits of most of the United States is pretty much in an addictive sort of a rut. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be out there. It's always going to be around me, the smells, the sights, and the social situations that involve eating. You know, I mean, Thanksgiving, there's turkey. You know, other holidays, there are, you know, there's a lot of food involved. You know, depending on your religion, there are feasts and festivals where, you know, it's proper to be having have meat and cooked foods and
Oh,
so
when you
on.
say proper, though, proper for whom? Is it going to be proper for you?
Well, for festivals and everything, yeah, I will make concessions, and I will. I mean, because that's important to me. That's important to my happiness, and that's an important part of the process. Being happy, feeling good.
And but what do you think about the fact, though, that you can be happy if you allow yourself to get into this world? It is a different world.
Oh, absolutely. I see a tremendous sense of accomplishment that's going to, that of course would make anybody happy. I feel a sense of accomplishment right now, but I also view it as being just the very beginning. It's not going to be easy. There's, you know, many years ahead of me of you know, eating what I up to now viewed as largely rabbit food, which I enjoyed having once in a while, but not for every meal, every day, everywhere.
I understand that, but when I think of the condition that you're in, and we talk about beating it into submission, I think that it might be wise to give it some consideration and think about, even though you feel happy doing what you've always done, and you were saying that not all the time, but on some occasions, but believe me, there are ways that you can get into this lifestyle, and you will be wondering, well, why was I ever there in that other world, because this is so wonderful. I think that can happen. Do you see that as a possibility?
Oh, definitely. I see myself breaking the habit. The habit's broken. You know, I'm here, the habit is effectively broken. But I haven't been out really doing an awful lot of walking around restaurants and social
out into the other world.
Sure.
Because this is a different world.
Well, this is kind of a rarefied experience here.
What do you think as far as home life is concerned? You go back and your wife is going to be there, and see, what you said earlier was certain occasions. But what do you think when you're around every day? You're going to be into this, so you're really going to have to get into a frame of mind. You have to get it together psychologically first, don't you think, before you can even begin to think about being in this world that you're into right now. You haven't been to restaurants or around your family or anything. Well, how do you think that's going to affect your everyday life?
As far as home is concerned, I'm probably pretty fortunate. My wife and kids really want me to feel better, and they want the former Jeb back, you know, the person I was a number of years ago back, you know, with full of, you know, energy and enthusiasm and accomplishment. And you know, for them, it's no real big imposition to help me out with in trying to maintain what I've learned here. Is this going to be an end to cooked food in my house? No, I'm certain it's not. We're very social people, and you know, virtually every weekend. We have a lot of the family over. Again, that's all part of our culture. You know, we try to get together every weekend, and there's a lot of food there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more raw food and salad. But you know.
So you don't think you're going to have any problem, though, with your wife as far as you don't think there'll be any problem there at all?
No, they want me to be happy and healthy, because as I'm happy and healthy, they're happier and healthier too.
And so, well, your daughter's not here, so you wouldn't have a problem with that, but it's your son and your wife and the other relatives. And so when they start to ask you these questions about, well, I don't know, how are you planning to eat around them? When you say on the weekends, what are you going to do? Are you going to limit yourself, or how are you going to do that? Are you going to take a little of this and, you know, more of the raw stuff? How do you plan to do that?
Yeah, basically that's it. Hippocrates anticipates these sorts of situations because this is stuff they run into all the time themselves. And there are a number of different answers to that. Like the ribbing you take when everybody else is, you know, really hitting the buffet hard and walking around with, you know, the roast beef and the chicken or whatever, and it smells good and it looks good. And there you are with a salad. If somebody gives you a really hard time about it, you just look at them and you say, doctor's orders.
Okay, so that's your approach.
That's one way.
You're going to say doctor's orders, and that's it. Well, then maybe they'll. But then your wife, you have your wife there. You're going to be there with her every day. Your son doesn't live with you, right?
Yeah, he does. Right
he
now.
does. He does live with you. So they're your son, and I know they want you to be happy.
Both are big boosters.
Okay, well that's really great. So you don't think that sometimes maybe she might prepare something if you decide that you don't want to eat this something that she has prepared, and you would rather have your own food, how do you think she's going to react to that? Well, I made this lasagna the regular way, and I think
We've been together for 30-odd years. She knows me. She knows my whims. She knows that I'm not going to say anything to purposely upset her or give her a hard time like that. I have other ways of giving her a hard time and upsetting her. I have no worries about how she will handle this situation.
So you think she's going to be fine with it? Give you no problems
there's
whatsoever?
No question in my mind.
No problems whatsoever.
She's a smart, caring person.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I think you're pretty set in that area then. You're not going to have to worry about anybody badgering you, because some people do have that problem. I mean, they feel that some people don't understand, or they feel that, well, a little bit's not going to hurt you. What if you don't want to take a little bit?
I don't have to explain my lifestyle and my choices to anybody. I mean, you know, it's not like I'm doing something outrageous. It's not like I'm doing something that's insulting to somebody. You know, and if they choose to be insulted, that's really a choice they've made. And I don't think any of my friends are going to be insulted.
Well, let me ask you this. We talked about work before, and how before you were, I guess you were lethargic.
It's an understatement.
Okay. So that
Hitler was nasty. That's an understatement. I was lethargic. That's an understatement.
So what do you think about going back to work now? Do you feel, because you tell me, originally you told me that you weren't doing any exercise, and when you said about those 35 push-ups earlier,
sit-ups,
sit-ups, you talked about the 35 of them. You meant when you came here, you started out doing 35. Is that it? Yeah, because before.
Well, even before, when I was in shape, fairly well in shape, that was just something I couldn't do because of whatever's going on in my lower back. That I assume, I can only assume right now, based on my experience here, not on solid science, but just on my experience here, that may have had something to do with what I was eating or not eating.
And I think I understood you correctly before. I was probing for when was the last time you had done any exercise, and you said it was a long time.
Very sporadically. It's just been too exhausting for me.
Yeah, because it had been like a year before you had been on your bike, I believe it was. Was it that?
I hadn't seriously ridden my bike since the fall, and that was just occasionally, whereas I used to be able to do some pretty good mileage.
Well, you know, when we talk about the physical aspects of it, and I'd like to touch a little more on the psychology or the psychological aspect, because even though certainly you had and still have physical ailments, do you think that psychologically you've had any barriers in your life that would put, I mean, say people around you at all, that would put you in a mode that would not be conducive to, you know, or let's say that, or deterrence from, or assistance, some assisting factor that would make you feel, you know, I mean, you're already physically down with the ailments and everything that you've had, but do you think there have been any things in your either your background or, you know, people being around you that have assisted in your feeling rotten at times? And can that be, you know, can you do anything about that to help you get out of that mode?
Okay, there are two ways of looking at that. First, my generation is reluctant to use the term domino theory, but I think some of this is sort of domino theory-like. You know, the first and most important domino, the first domino is the most important one, and that's how you are physically. I think if that goes down the tube, then the rest of the dominoes aren't really all that far behind. If the first domino goes down, you know, how are you really able to cope with emotional problems? How are you really able to cope with emotional challenges, intellectual challenges? How are you able to really sit around and read a book and get something out of it? If physically you're wasted, how can you really be happy if physically you are wasted? Because that's always there, that's always gnawing on you. You don't stand in one place. There's no such thing as stasis, being in one place all the time. If you think you're in one spot, you're really going backwards because the world is still spinning.
Positively. And change. It's constant, isn't it?
The only constant is change.
That's it. The only constant in this life is change, and taxes, it has been said.
Well, Steve Martin said, "I forgot."
But you seem like you're certainly in a better place, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You are, and definitely in a better place. And that was one of the things that we wanted to touch bases with, the fact that, as we said, before and after. And your experiences were, being here at Hippocrates, were not, you didn't get exactly what you were looking for. The surprises, though, were, I think, good enough that it gives you faith and encouragement that things can be better, as Brian told you. Even though it might not be cured, you can certainly, you can cope. And that's good to know, is it not?
Of course it is. And again, having a plan, that helps too. Just sort of floating around, that's not a way to do things. Now we have a plan.
Not. So Jeb, there are many health facilitators around, people teaching you this, teaching you that. Can you give us some insight into your experiences as far as people? We don't have to name names, but just give us some insight as to, for example, in the kitchen, what have you learned from the chef and those people there around that area?
Well, Hippocrates has designed a pretty bulletproof program here. They've got some really good communicators. Everything from teaching you how to sprout to prepare foods, both the regular green stuff and desserts. Desserts that I liked even. Okay, there's no chocolate involved, but what you can do with a processor and some dehydrated pecans and some seeded dates, it's just amazing. You just drop the dates in there, you get a nice little mush out of it, take it out, put it in a bowl, drop in some dehydrated pecans, just a little bit, and you mix that all together, and it is a delicious treat.
So that's something you can have instead of when you have these special affairs that you spoke of, these gatherings. That's something you can have.
Yeah.
And you know what would be great? To introduce the outside world to your world. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Sure, bit by bit. I mean, that's all.
Yeah, you don't want to force anyone in.
That's all part of the Hippocrates plan too.
Oh, is it now?
You don't have to be beating people over the head.
No, you don't.
Evangelist, missionary fashion. Make some stuff available. Even like for your kids, if they're used to McDonald's, slowly introduce things like veggie burgers. It gets them into a mindset. But some of the people they have here to kind of make the transition a little bit easier are people like in the kitchen that can show you very easy ways to prepare a number of good dishes. And they do this without overpowering you with a lot of what for me is kind of involved scientific mumbo-jumbo. But for me, reading a cookbook is scientific mumbo-jumbo. Saute this and so on and that. And they demystify a lot of that process. And you don't feel like an idiot asking questions.
What about equipment? Are you planning to get like a champion, or you probably already have blenders?
Equipment is pretty basic. Yeah, it's going to cost a bit for most people to get started. In it. You want a good juicer. You want a dehydrator, and you want a food processor of some sort. And then after that, you can start doing water filters, which is pretty important too. So yeah, there's an initial cash investment, but you can still be going to health food stores, and it doesn't have to be immediate. I'm fortunate because I already have a wheat gas machine, thanks to a zealot friend of mine, and I have a Mr. Juice Man juicer, which may not be the absolute best juicer in the world, but it's fine for me for right now. So I still need to get a dehydrator. I'm not going to run out to get a dehydrator right now.
You'll work your way in that direction.
I'll work my way up to it.
Well, so you've learned some very interesting and creative things in the kitchen. What about other areas of Hippocrates' learning process?
Well, they have a lot of really good people coming in, people explaining the whole juicing process, even down to how to disassemble and clean your juicer. But And there are also success stories that come with some of these people. Everybody seems to have a story. You know, even people who had been vegetarians for all their life and thought that they had really pretty much had the entire system working for them, who had gotten sick and then discovered how incredibly important it is for them to be going raw, and who have made what can only be described as just really sort of miraculous recoveries from otherwise catastrophic illnesses. And we have people like that who are explaining juicing, people like that who are explaining how to do sprouts. By doing sprouts, I mean how to cultivate and raise sprouts. And it's remarkably simple. It just takes a little bit of time each day. A little bit of time each day.
Yeah, a little bit of time, but it can be such fun. How did you feel doing that?
I'm not really into doing things like that, but at least now it's less of a mysterious and foreboding process for me.
And it can get to be fun if you just, give it a shot and do it. And,
yeah, if you like this.
Yeah, I mean, but see, you can grow to like it, because watching a seed grow, I think, is miraculous. It's wonderful.
Without a doubt, it's a miracle.
So that, do that, get into it, and you're going to be doing those buckwheat, you're going to be doing buckwheat lettuce and sunflower greens and wheatgrass and all of that.
Well, for me, it starts, I think, with sunflower sprouts, then broccoli sprouts, and then like radish sprouts, and then it'll start going.
Yeah, in other words, you're saying that you want to do the indoor stuff. Well, you can do that indoors too. I mean,
sure.
the ones that you grow in the trays with the soil. But you're saying that like in jars or bags or whatever. That's where you're going to start. Yeah, sure. You start out simply. Yeah, I mean, it's not difficult. The other stuff's not difficult, but you want to take steps.
I can complicate it. I can screw it up.
Well, of course you can. Anybody can, but focus. That's what I say.
Focus.
Yeah.
One sprout at a time. Grasshopper. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you're going to have fun doing this. I think. I think if you just put a little concentration in there and know that you're going to be better. Tell us about some of the other experiences that you had. Did you speak with any other counselors? I mean, surely you did, with counselors here that outside of, when we talked about the kitchen, what other encounters did you have? Or
not an awful lot. I'm not a very confrontational person. I did speak with Brian a couple of times, and Brian and Anna Maria just know an amazing.
These are the directors.
Yeah,
of
they're the directors of Hippocrates, and their experience is deep, and their ability to present it is pretty impressive. I mean, if I can feel good about what I'm hearing,
then just about anybody can.
Yeah.
Because you did start out with some reservations as to what it was going to be like. I remember that in the first interview.
And if they're not certain about something, they'll say they're not certain about that.
And be honest.
Brian will say, I think you need to ask Anna Maria about that. Anna Maria will say, I think you need to ask Brian about that.
Well, that's good, and that lets you know that they're not giving you any hogwash.
Right.
I've heard someone say that.
And they're not afraid to. They recognize that they have to progress. That sometimes they learn something that kind of negates some old common wisdom, and they have no problem moving on after that.
Did you have any colonics while you were here?
Yes, I had a colonic while I was here.
Yes. Do we want to talk about that?
Yes, we'd love to talk about that. Colonics. I was so happy to see that I wasn't scheduled for something like that. I thought this was going to be a situation where you must have a colonic. It may have been. Maybe I could have dodged the bullet if I'd wanted to.
Well, but surely you could have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. I'm a grown up. They can't make me do it.
That's right.
Nobody's going to hold me down and make me do it.
No one's holding a gun to your head.
Okay, something really perverse happened. I found myself wanting to have done a colonic. I didn't want to leave here knowing that there was some stone that was left unturned here. So I went and did it. And there were a couple of things that made it notable. First and foremost was it wasn't painful. It was not humiliating. The operator here was a very nice fellow, very calming, very relaxing, and a good sense of humor. I mean, you have to have a sense of humor to be able to meet a total stranger and then do something like that to them. So, okay, it was not painful. and it worked. I mean, again, I came here with pretty good set of genetics, and there was not an awful lot of really vile yuck that had been deeply hidden within the bowels of Jeb.
But you had one colonic, is that what
I
you
had one colonic, and they got a little bit of yuck out.
Well, see, you understand what happens, though. The most recent is what relieves itself.
Yeah.
You understand that? And then we go back and back and back.
What are we saying?
Well, I'm saying that there are years of buildup in your colon. So
what are we saying?
So that I'm saying that you need more than one colonic to make that statement.
So how many are we saying?
Was there any other individual that you met with that gave you some insight into the way you should be living on a daily basis?
That's about the extent of the.
Okay, so those are the people with whom you met, Brian and Anna Maria, the directors, the colonic operator, the kitchen.
Yeah, and the other speakers, the people demonstrating machines and things like the sprouting and.
About how many speakers would you say you came in contact with?
Half a dozen or so different
Half a dozen?
ones, yeah.
And so they were talking about the machines, the operating of the machines?
Yeah, machines and the philosophy of things. And I didn't go to all of the things. Some of the things I didn't go to because I was already familiar with them, like acupuncture. I'm familiar with that, and that had been the only thing that would help my my back feel better in the past when I'd been doing the sit-ups or sprained it some way, somehow. Painkillers didn't work, massage didn't work, acupuncture worked.
And didn't you say that helped you with smoking as well?
Yeah, acupuncture certainly helped me to quit smoking.
So you didn't see any of those?
No, and some of what I call New Age crap, I kind of steered clear of. Not for me. Yeah, maybe sometime down the line it will be.
Yeah, sure. Just because it's not today doesn't mean that it won't be tomorrow. As we said, the only thing that's constant is change.
Right.
So you might go in that direction at a later time, and maybe you won't, and that's okay too. You don't have to experience everything.
And some of the retro stuff, like it's group therapy, which to me is sort of 60s encounter group. Perhaps if it was to happen on the last day of being here, I would go for it, but I don't want to go into a group and spill my guts in front of a bunch of people I don't know, and then have to face those people for the next 20 days.
Yeah, and that's not for you. Some people are very comfortable with that, but the environment.
Oh man, some people here love it.
Yeah, but the environment is such that, I mean, it's up to you. Like you said, nobody's putting a gun to your head.
No,
you can do what you want to
exactly.
do. That which you want to do is here for you, and that which you don't want to do, you exclude it.
But my advice would be, before you absolutely decide not to do something, really think about what it is that you don't want to do. Because you can always get up and walk out. Yeah,
sure.
And you might get something out of it by being there.
They have a facility over here for church, don't they?
I don't know. I don't go to church.
Okay, that was my question. Did you get involved in that at all? No, so okay.
No, I'm Jewish.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, the synagogue, they didn't have a synagogue, so you would be excluded in that area. But I think what it is, I don't think they focus on any one religion. I mean, it's just they have that place there, so you can do whatever you want.
Well, there certainly is a.
So that could have been your synagogue.
Yeah,
really.
Well, there's a focus on spirituality. There's a focus on monotheism, and there's respect for other religions. I mean, it's not something that's avoided at all. It's something that's brought up by certain people rather constantly, but not in the sense that I mean, there's nothing evangelical about like a specific religion.
When you say certain people, what do you mean, the guest or?
No. Certainly Brian, certainly something like this, certainly God is very important to Brian, and he feels that's, I believe he feels that's a large part of the success that he enjoys in his own personal life. And
he feels blessed.
Yeah, and he likes to make, I think he feels that other people should be aware of God, and that they're not walking around on this rock alone.
Well, Certainly your experience has been, as we had hoped that it would be, in your skepticism or whatever it is that you had when you came. I was certainly sure that you would have some good results, and even though they may not have been the results that you sought, you did come away. You're not skeptical about the situation now. Here at Hippocrates, you know that the people are willing to do whatever they can to assist you and not badger you, to make you comfortable. I think this is what I get from the essence of what you've said. And so that it's been, I should think, an educational experience for you. Would you say that? Educational, uplifting.
Cleansing?
Cleansing, certainly, cleansing. And I think you're walking away from this second interview that we're having, I think you're walking away with much more than you came in with. And I would just advise you, if I can throw in my little advice, is just to continue on in the path that you've taken here with everything that the people have given you. Just, I would say, strengthen it, to be cognizant of the fact that you have to continue to focus in the right direction. And I think you can be fine.
I should also say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity and chain of events that made it possible for me to come here. And it's something I'm very respectful of, and it's something I will do my best to continue to show respect for. And I guess the best way to do that is to maintain the program and just do my best. I guess the best thank you that I could give the powers that brought me here is to be healthy. I guess the most important thing I've learned since I've been here is that things that we would never expect, never think were detrimental to our health are, and they're all around us. The water we drink, tap water we drink, the bottled water we drink. You know, a lot of times you don't really know where that's coming from or what's in it or what's not in it. If you live near a golf course, all that nice green grass, you know, giving forth the oxygen, what about all the chemicals that are on there? You know, you really have to be very careful what you eat and drink these days. You can really be turning your health upside down without even knowing it.